Hey, everybody.
How are you doing today?
I'm good. I think it's going to rain, but I don't know. It kind of looks like it, but it hasn't. I haven't seen any yet.
Yeah, I can't wait till it rains. I've got a dog that's just really struggling. We've had now a day and a half of just craziness around here and trying to, pick him up and get him over places and new medication and try to hold an ice pack on a dog. I mean, really, yeah. I mean, it's just been that kind of a day, and so I feel like I'm a little frantic and behind because we're packing to go to HPDA tomorrow. So
Yeah, looking
yeah,
forward to that. That's going to be good. We're going to have a booth all 3 days there at HPB Expo in Louisville. So booth 1408. That's our booth number. So if you're going to be there at the show, then make sure that you drop by, say hey,
yeah,
and
love to
learn a
see
little
you.
bit about what we're doing and customer-matic and all that good stuff.
Yeah, it's awesome. So today's topic is going to be fun because it's like I go weeks and months and I mean long time and never have a complaint, and then all of a sudden, does anybody else do that? It's like they all come in like in droves or something, in packs, complaint packs. Yeah, there they go. So I've actually had a couple this week, which is very surprising. But you know what? We're going to talk about how to handle them. So I planned this like a month ago, this topic, and so that's how it happens. So those of you that knew I was planning this and wanted to complain, hey, thank you so much. Now I got something to talk about.
Well, the thing is, right? I mean, you can't be in business and not have an occasional complaint. I mean,
Exactly.
try as you might. And we're very much a service-oriented organization. We care about our customers, making them happy, doing the best job that we can. But we still have complaints. We still miss the ball sometimes. We still, need to make corrections, and our clients need to alert us to things occasionally. So when it happens, it's I mean, we take it seriously, and so a lot of what you're going to hear today is stuff that we have to put into practice too.
Absolutely. But there's one thing I did learn. It's probably been 5 or 6 years ago, and I think it was Mark Stoner and I were having a conversation at a BNI deal. He asked me one day. He said, "So how's it going?" And I said, "I don't know." And he goes, "You sound kind of down." And I said, "Well, I just feel like I'm the problem solver. I'm out. People complain. I solve that problem. Anything else, I'm always solving problems." And he says, "So stop." And I was like, "What do you mean stop?" He goes, "Let people solve their own problems first. You can always come in after they fail to solve them and help them." So that's one of the things that I've learned is with complaints or with problems that come to me, the very first thing I like to do is to turn it back over to whoever was supposed to be doing the thing so that they have an opportunity to solve their own problem. And what I've learned by that is a couple of things. Number one, it frees me up to do the things that I need to do as the leader of the company. But the other thing that it does, it gives those people, man, they get a boost when they're able to solve it themselves. When they're able to get back in and say, "Okay, what happened? What's the deal?" And then come back later and say, "This was the problem. This is, what I told them happened, or what I missed, or whatever it is. And this is what I told them we're going to do to solve that problem." And they solve it, the customer's happy. And I'm just telling you, it goes a long way with boosting their confidence. They know that the next time they can solve that same problem themselves by doing the same thing. So it's really a good thing. So the first thing I would tell you is how to handle complaints is don't be the only point person in your business to handle those complaints. So we're
Yeah,
going to talk a little bit about that. How do you not be that person?
yeah. I
That
mean,
doesn't that doesn't mean that sometimes you don't have to do that. Don't get me wrong, but I think it's important to have other people give them opportunities.
yeah. If the unofficial sign on your office door says, the complaint stops here, then you're always going to have a perpetual line of employees and customers who are you know taking their complaints to you. And this is a military principle that I learned in a book called Turn the Ship Around.
Mm,
you always put the ability to solve a problem and address an issue as close to the source of the problem as possible. So whoever is involved in the problem, from a standpoint of needing to know about it or having the ability to fix it or was the cause of it in the first place, the ability to solve that problem should be located right there as well. That's the fastest way to get to a resolution. It's the quickest way to help someone course correct and build the better system that I think we're going to talk a little bit about systems today, but to make sure that it doesn't happen in the future. So that's, I think, a good tip, a good leadership tip is, it's not that we don't want to solve the problems. We do want to solve the problems. We want to solve them so much. We want to prevent them from ever happening again. And the best way to do that is to kick the problem to the right person on the team to solve that problem once and for all.
But the first thing before you can solve a problem is when you've got an unsatisfied customer, you have to be able to handle that customer. And a lot of times, I don't really like the word handling, because it almost sounds like you're, I don't know, doing something nefarious, manipulative, and all that. To me, it's really on tips on how to communicate with an unsatisfied customer. Because a lot of times when customers come to you, especially, if you're a service business and you're the head of the business and you're not there on the line doing the service or making sure everything gets done, you don't have context. So there's absolutely no context for you to get back with a customer and say, this happened, that happened, is it good, is it bad, whatever. So the first thing you have to do is buy a little time so that you can go do the research and find out what the context of the issue is. So in order to do that, you do have to communicate with that customer. Here's my pet peeve, all right? Why didn't you communicate with the customer? Well, I didn't have anything to tell them. Well, wait, sure you do. I learned this in the mortgage business. Every week I called every one of my mortgage clients. 90% of them on every given week, I told them I had no news. But guess what? They knew I had no news. They knew that I had paid attention to them, made the effort to call them back and let them know, or email them and let them know, here's where we are, still in the holding pattern, no news. This idea that you don't communicate with somebody because you just don't have anything new to tell them is ludicrous. Tell them that you don't have anything new to tell them. It keeps you top of mind, and it keeps them it allows them to relax and know that somebody's watching over them. So the first thing is make sure you get back with people and say, hey, I got your email, or I got your voicemail, or however they communicated with you. I see your text. I need a little time to do some research and figure out what's going on, and I will get back to you, or somebody on my team will get back to you by XYZ. And set that expectation and meet it. So that's the very first thing, is communicate and make sure that people know they've been heard. You've seen the complaint or the situation, and you're working on it, or somebody's working on it.
A process has started to solve that problem and address it. Yeah,
exactly.
Let them know. That's good.
Yeah. So creating a process for handling customer complaints, Carter, let's talk about that a minute.
Well, so we just sort of touched on it there. There needs to be one of the biggest problems, and the reason that complaints don't get handled is, it's like, if you ever walked into a slow Wendy's or McDonald's or any restaurant for that matter, and seen over in the corner there's this customer suggestion box or customer complaints or whatever. There's a box where you drop the survey cards, and it's full to overflowing, and you can tell, it's got an inch of dust on it. Nobody's paid attention to that box for years. And it's obvious that any effort on my part to make a complaint would fall on deaf ears and join the ranks of all of the other people that are trapped in the box. So, that's the last thing that you want. You need a system to make sure that those complaints are being heard, and that the right people in the organization are involved in helping to bring a resolution to that complaint, to figure out what the situation was, to get accuracy and the details and the data that you need in order to understand what happened, and then begin to put a process in place or a solution in place to work it through. And so communication happens at the beginning, it happens in the middle, it happens in the end. The whole thing is communication. The whole process is making sure that you are letting the people in the process, in the complaint, involved in the issue, understand what their role is, so that they know that their task is, they're up to bat. It's your turn to take the information you've been given and do something with it. Do A, then B, then C, and once that's done, then report this to person, X, so that they can take it and do the next steps. So a clear process of resolving complaints. And guys, this is like life skill stuff, right? And too often we think that the people that we hire should just have these skills coming in to our business. But common sense would tell us that they don't. If we ask them personal questions about the relationship they have with their spouse, or with their kids, or with their parents, or with their friends, or the jobs that they've had in the past, we can quickly see that oftentimes the problems in their lives stem from not having good conflict resolution skills. And those are skills that can be built. And they're, most of the time, I've only met a handful of people that I think innately have those skills, like from birth. I mean, that you can just tell they're excellent at handling their own emotions and working through a process to bring resolution. That kind of skill is something that is usually taught, and it's usually taught in the context of jobs. Believe it or not, some of the best life skills that I've ever learned have been in the context of other jobs that I've had under good leadership. And those people slowed down the process for me and taught me how to handle certain things, to be a better relationship manager, a better personal manager of people and of relationships, to be able to create the outcomes that are more positive for me and for the organization, for them, for the other person. So, don't just think that this program comes automatically installed in the latest model of employee you just hired. This is something you have to instill in them, and equipping them is part of building that process, creating that process, so that they know how to behave, they know how to deal with it. It's done according to your standard, according to good communication processes and habits. And then, once that's done, then that process can replicate itself over and over again. And here's just a bonus, right? I mean, this is just because of the way I think. I'm holistic. I'm not just about the business. I'm about the people in the business. When you do this with your employees, you're making an investment, not just for your company, but in their lives, to make their lives better for the rest of their life. Somebody to stop and teach you how to resolve conflict, to teach you that in that moment, you have the ability to control your emotions and say certain things that help to lead to outcomes that everybody is happy with, win-win situations. That can change a person's life. That can change a marriage. It can change relationships between parents and kids. So you have a huge opportunity right here, is all I'm saying. I think if you took it seriously, if we all got excited every time a customer complained, because it gave us an opportunity to refine that skill in other people in our organization, and to become better as an organization to prevent these things from happening in the first place, we'd all be a lot further along. Okay, I'll get off the soapbox. Sorry.
No, it's fine. That leads me into this next section. How could you solve the complaint? Well, the first thing that you got to look at is what is the complaint about? I mean, if you look at some of these things, I just wrote a list of things. So here's what I think are things that it's like, I hate. I normally don't complain about them, but internally I'm like, if I have to be in one more long wait time. I mean, how many of you guys, oh my gosh. I mean, the people I hate the worst has always been Comcast, because they give me a window from like 1 to 5 and they show up at 2 minutes till 5. And I've been waiting since 1, drives me nuts. So long wait times, for customer service calls, staff member or somebody just offended somebody. And here's the thing, in this day and age, it doesn't take much to offend people. I mean, I'm always just biting my tongue because it's like, yeah, I don't know how they're going to react to that. I mean, I'll just say this, I'm 65. So a 65-year-old thinks a little bit different than a 25-year-old these days. I have a different vocabulary. I have different things I think about. I was raised in certain situations that 25-year-old just thinks it's ridiculous, but it's the way I was raised. And so I have to be really careful in my speech, so if somebody offends somebody else. So, we work with people on, hey, we're dealing with people with all ages. Just make sure everything is evergreen. And evergreen, I mean, it works for every age, everybody. So let's do that. If you're looking for something and every time you look for it somewhere, they're supposed to have it in stock and you go and it's not there. Y'all ever gone online, to any store and said, oh, they've got one. All right, I'm going to run down there right now. I'm in Cottontown, Tennessee. I'm 30 miles outside of Nashville. Went to Best Buy to get something. They showed it in stock, didn't have it. Oh, drives me crazy. Items that are missing or broken during shipping. We've all had that. Goods or services didn't meet expectations. Here's my funniest story about this one. You guys ever got what is now I'm blanking on the name, but it's the big envelope you get in the mail, the sweepstakes.
Publishers Clearinghouse
sweepstake, and all those coupons that have all that stuff you can buy. So one year I just thought, I'm just going to buy some stuff, just see what it is. That was the biggest box of garbage I've ever seen in my life. It was like, well, they didn't make my expectations. Something I thought was this big was, just unbelievable. So that's like my experience of something not meeting my expectation. But the big one is don't mess with people's money.
Yeah.
Don't mess with my money. And as a business, don't mess with people's money. That's a real big one. So how can you solve those complaints before they ever happen? That's something that we have to think about. And where do we find that information? Well, some of the best ways to do that is in your reviews.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Go to your reviews. What are people complaining about?
Yeah. So, we were talking about systems. Any good process or system should log the complaint in a place that's like recorded forever, to where you can go back into that file, into that spreadsheet or document, and look and see the history of all of the complaints the business has ever gotten, and start to see themes and repeating or patterns. And when that happens, you start to see, wow, between 2018 and 2019, we got a whole lot of complaints, and they all seem to focus around this one employee who's no longer with us. So we solved that problem. Okay. And then, but during this period, we seem to get a lot of these types of complaints. Why is that? So you start asking systemic questions, you're on the path to being able to solve problems so they never happen again. And now you can do some real sleuthing and saying, we don't have a very good supply chains, communication system so that we can let a customer know when the parts that we ordered are coming in, and communicate with them along through that process so that they're not just left wondering for 3 or 4 weeks while we're waiting on parts to come in. If we did have a better process in place and we were communicating during those times, what would that look like? Well, it would mean that our customers aren't getting frustrated with lack of understanding of where we are in the process or feeling forgotten. All of these things start to become non-issues now because we're doing our job to communicate better. So having a record of that and looking in your reviews is almost as good as like the spreadsheet that I was talking about, because you can go back historically and see all of those complaints, or all of the things that people made. Even in a 4-star review, they'll talk about how wonderful it was and such a great thing. I just wish that blah, blah, blah. Right. And they'll mention the one thing that they were a little frustrated with, even though they're giving you 4 stars. Mind the crap out of those reviews. Those are gold. Those are almost worth more than the stars themselves because they help you get better.
Oh man, I totally agree. And then there's the real thing, and I'm going to stop here a minute because we got a heart. Thank you very much, Mr. Roydhouse. Really appreciate that. If anybody else out there would like to give us a heart or a thumbs up, that would be absolutely great. Mitchell Howe is here. Hey, Mitch, how you doing, man? Glad to see you here. I'm going to put this up because I think this is true. Listen with empathy and compassion. Offer best value. Deliver what's promised. No surprises. Anticipate questions. Always be respectful, acknowledging their position, concern. It's important to them, and thank them for their business. Great advice, Chuck. Great advice. So the other thing that I think is really important that we don't always do real well as people, because we have a tendency, this is a proven fact, that human beings have a tendency to overpromise and underdeliver. We think we can get things done quicker than we actually can, and we don't get them done. It takes us too long. The other thing that I would tell you that is we're really prone to is, instead of listening to what our customers are really saying, we are actually listening to what we want to hear from the customer. Those two things, it's really interesting because of the way our brains work. And so I just want to tell you these two things. Set good expectations will almost take care of both those things. Well, let me explain. So if I know that my tendency as a human being is to think that I can't get things done as quick as I think I can get them done, and I know that for a fact, if I think I can get something done in one day, I'm going to tell somebody two. Automatically. I'm just going to tell them two. This could be done in 48 hours or 2 weeks. If I think I can do it in 1 week, I'm going to tell 2 weeks. It'll be 2 weeks. I've lived that for a long time because I would rather over deliver and under promise. 100 times out of 100. We think we can do things so much quicker than we can. We also, when we're listening, and this is something I'm gonna give Carter a lot of credit here. He's the best listener I know. I mean, when you really have a conversation with Carter, he turns phones off, everything goes down, and he is zoned in, and he will listen to you and he hears you. It's absolutely quite amazing. I am not that good at all because my brain is going. So what I have to do is I have to play a few games to myself. I have to set expectations with me. What I do for me is I say, okay, Taylor, if you don't listen to this customer and really figure this out, it's going to take you 3 times longer because we're going to have to go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. So quiet your brain and listen. I have to tell myself that.
Yeah.
And it's an expectation I have to meet within myself. So those are just a couple of things that I've had to do for me to really, kind of make sure that I am doing the listening that I need to do. And then I'm setting really good expectations that I know that me or my team can meet. So I think that's really, really important.
That's good.
How about you? What do you do?
So, making sure that, listening is you're right. And thanks for the compliment, but, hearing what they have to say and acknowledging it, like repeating back to the customer what you've heard them say so that they feel heard. That's one of those life skill type things in terms of conflict de-escalation. It's just a good skill to have to help them understand that you understand. So it's, just one of those, it doesn't take but a few minutes to, after you've heard what they've said, to ask a question or to repeat back to them. So what I think I'm hearing you say, and tell me if I'm wrong, this happened, then, this person said this, and then this was the result of that. And then they have the ability to go say, well, no, not exactly, and correct you and provide additional details. Oftentimes when you do that, that's when you learn more about what actually was really going on. Instead of just the rehearsed story that they gave you to start. So all of that is a good chance to really dig in um, to make sure that the customer feels heard. And let me tell you, maybe not 80-20, but let's say 60 to 70% of conflict resolution is making sure that, the person who you're having a conflict with feels like they're dealing with somebody who's reasonable. And if they feel heard, then you've already established that you're reasonable. Okay. That's just those two things. If they listen to what I had to say and I understand that they understand, then I believe I'm working with somebody who can be reasonable. So just slowing the process down in the beginning to make sure that you let your customer know that you recognize there's a problem and that you're going to do everything you can to make sure that you get through this process with them to come out hopefully with a win-win. So, and that doesn't mean that you're promising to give up the farm or, give a whole bunch of free stuff away. I mean, you're not capitulating yet. You're just simply saying, I recognize that there's a problem. You and I are now on the same side of the table looking at the problem and saying, yep, we're gonna work together to make sure that this gets solved. So if you'll give me the time I need to go investigate with my team to find out what happened, to find out what we can do about it, and then I will report back to you through that process to make sure that we're going to take care of you. But I can tell you that at the end of this, our goal is to make sure that you're happy and that we have done what's right. So are you okay with that? Right? You're getting their buy-in, and now you can start that process.
So I think the other thing too, you said something really interesting about getting on the same side of the table. I think what happens a lot of times, and we have to be careful because our businesses are kind of our babies. And so when somebody complains about our business or the people we work with or us or whatever, we tend to be defensive first. And if we take that defensive posture and, it's kind of like being sword fighting. I'm going to go after you and then you're going to come after me and I'm going to block. And, it's going to be this adversarial thing back and forth, and nothing good comes from that. I mean, I've never been in a position to where something has become adversarial that good things come out of it. Usually there's slaughter ensued somewhere in there.
Well, so, oftentimes there can be some really entertaining email exchanges back and forth as you verbally slay one another. But at the end of it, guaranteed, neither one of you are going to get what you really want.
Yeah, and nobody wins in those situations. So, if you can and it's not that it's don't be defensive, but be curious. I think that to me is the way to do these kind of things, is be curious about what's going on. Be curious about what happened. Be curious about how that other person is thinking about it and how something might have affected them. I find if we're curious enough to reach out to that person and say, okay, I hear you. Let's dig into this a little more. Tell me a little bit more about that, because that's not normally what happens over here. So I'm curious to know, what's going on and those kind of things. I just find that takes the adversarial piece almost just totally takes it from an adversarial to now you're both on the same side of the table, being curious, asking the questions.
Yeah. I mean, now I'm not the problem or you're not the problem. The problem is what the problem is, and you and I together are going to try to figure it out.
And solve it.
Resolution.
Yeah. And come to some kind of a solution, or resolution. Either one. So, yep, I think that's good. Yeah, well, thank you so much, Terry, for the heart. Love that. And then Jenny, thank you. Jenny Renee is here, so we appreciate that so much. Guys, that's it. We hope you've had a really good time today. We're at 30 minutes, and we try to keep it to that. Just know that Spark Live is also released as a podcast. We're on Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, Podvine, and pretty much your favorite player that's out there. And then next week, we'll be back from HPBA, and we're going to be talking about creating trust with your customers. We just find that a lot of people don't understand how you create trust, especially online. But the trust factor in marketing is really, really high. So, oh, and that's the one thing I didn't say about the reason about dealing with your customers is so important in marketing is because reviews. A lot of times when you deal with those customers and they've left you a bad review or bad testimonial or whatever, a lot of times when that's resolved, they'll go back in and change that. So it really does help your marketing in local. So just throw that out there. Just totally missed that point. But the same deal with trust. It's very important to have trust with your customers, and there's ways that you bolster trust, and then there's ways that you can absolutely eradicate it really, really quick. So we're going to talk about both sides of that. So thanks so much, and we'll see you next week.
Bye, everybody.